kick this thing off?
Yeah.
All right.
This is the ReveLAtions podcast.
We're revealing the truth.
Welcome.
That's what a revelation is, isn't it?
I'm GM.
And I'm Snotty. Welcome.
And I'm Mark.
Here we are.
And I'm the guestess of the ReveLAtions podcast.
A man who needs no introduction, but we can give him one.
Yes. Mark and I are really good friends, so...
So he doesn't have to introduce me.
Well, no.
He's exempt from that.
No, but... and I know a lot of the listeners will know all the artists that you worked with, but maybe not necessarily the man, Mark Schulman. And I think that is...
I'm a Virgo. I like long walks.
Right.
I'm sensitive. I cry at movies.
Yes.
I really do. I'm like the sensitive male. Like, my wife's like this, really awesome Swedish gal, and my daughter's this, 12-year-old, and they're both like really lovely ladies, but they always laugh at me, man. I'm always the one crying at the movies, and they're never like, I'm way more emotional than that.
There's a lot of strength in that, you're an honest person.
That's what I keep on trying to tell myself. But thanks, Snotty. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I feel much better about myself now,
Because I know you were, having some confidence issues, Mark.
Well, no, I actually think it really is definitely... I like it when people allow themselves to be sensitive and to be vulnerable.
Right.
Especially as artists. I mean, that's one of the components of being a true artist is allowing the vulnerability. If you don't allow vulnerability, how can you express art?
Well, and then how do the people connect? Because I think when you talk about, especially music, which, is your primary, thing.
Well, and speaking.
It's you really got to connect. Yeah. But for all the listeners that wouldn't know, you are legendary in the business.
You've seen him tour with Cher.
Yeah, don't you know who I think I am?
You've seen him
I'm
tour
a legend
the
in
world
my own
with
mind, man.
Pink.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. I don't want to be just completely...
The man behind the beat.
Yes. Cher.
I've been fortunate, man. I my first tour, I played with a gal I'm still friends with, Brenda Russell, who's this amazing R&B artist, who wrote the music for The Color Purple on Broadway.
Oh, wow.
And she's amazing. She's written like a lot of hits for other people. And we opened up for ReveLAtions. That tells you how long ago it was.
Wow, that was a while ago.
The 80s. Then it went from there, and I was playing with like a lot of smooth jazz artists, people that are still great friends of mine, like Dave Koz, and David Benoit and Bobby Caldwell. And then I got my first taste of rock and roll. I auditioned for Foreigner. And then I got the Foreigner gig. And then all of a sudden I went from doing like, these R&B and fusion jazz. I never call myself like a full-on like a bebop jazz player, but I was playing like fusion jazz, which is basically like a lot of funk, But then when I got the Foreigner gig, it's like, oh, wait a minute, now we're playing all these big venues, and it was like a whole different thing. Then I was addicted. And then I, started working with Billy Idol and Simple Minds.
Right.
And, on and off for many years. I was doing different gigs together. I mean, at one point I was doing like Billy Idol, and then I auditioned for Cher, and I was doing Cher and Billy Idol and Simple Minds and Foreigner. I mean, I've been really grateful that I've been able to navigate playing with some of the great musical artists, man.
Well, I know for us, we're really excited to have you on because the concept of this podcast obviously is about inspiring people to continue to dream and chase their dream and go after the dream, have the courage to do that. And I think you kind of embody that, not just in your musical self, not in just your person, but also what you're doing now career-wise. So it's just
called tenacity.
Yes.
And I'll tell you a great story right about that time period, right? Okay. So I auditioned for Foreigner, right? I got the gig. Then I don't hear back from him for like a month. Then a friend of mine, Mark Brown, this great bass player, he's like, man, I was recording at Conway, which was one of the big recording studios at the time, and Foreigner was recording. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Foreigner was recording. So I call up Kevin Jones, who was Mick Jones, the head of the band. His brother was the tour manager. And I'm like, Kevin, it's Mark Schulman. Like, what's going on, dude? I thought I got the gig, playing with Foreigner. He's like, well, you did, man, but we're recording and we hired this producer named Keith Forsey. And Keith's a drummer, and, Keith is very particular about drummers. So he hadn't heard your name. So we're using, Tal Bergman for some of these recordings. And Tal's great. I mean, Tal's still a friend of mine. I said, look, I totally respect that. I said, would you mind giving me Keith's phone number? This is what a tenacious
Yes.
pushy guy does.
Yes.
So I got on the phone and my hand was shaking, man. And I leave my message. Keith, this is Mark Schulman. Listen, I know you use Talon. He's a great drummer, and I love Talon. But if you ever need a drummer, man, you're ever in a bind, give me a call. I hung up the phone. I thought it's never going to happen. I swear to God, 3 months later, I get a page. Remember, you don't remember pagers. He probably almost remembers pagers. Yeah. No, it's like a buzz. And so I call back. So I call him, and there's a message like, Mark, it's Keith Forsey. Listen, man, I'm in the studio, and Tal's not available. I need a drummer, man. Can you come down and play? And Keith had done he had written "Don't You Forget About Me" originally for Billy Idol, and Billy turned it down. So he gave it to Simple
One of my
Minds.
favorite all-time songs from the 80s,
Yes.
by the way.
Yeah.
So Keith
That
wrote
song,
it.
every time
So
I hear
Keith
it,
did that.
turn it up.
He had been known for doing soundtracks. So he did The Breakfast Club. So he had been called to do Beverly Hills Cop 3, a Pointer Sisters track, and that's what he called me for. And so I called him back. I said, Keith, it's Mark. Yeah, I'll come right down. I call my tech at the time, and drums go down there. I head down there. I meet Keith, and Keith's like this super, super hyper Englishman, British guy, really awesome. And it so turns out that this track was, remember New Jack Swing? It was like a hard hitting juke, jack, juke, jack, and that was right. Man, I love playing that shit, right? And so I wrote out the chart. I went in. I cut it first take. And I came back into the control room. He gave me the biggest hug. He said, mate, that was incredible. From that point on, he started calling me. And the irony was, the stuff that he produced for Foreigner never made it. And I ended up recording all this other stuff with Foreigner and being in that band. And, I've been in that band off and on for like 17 years. So because I called Keith, so then I get a call from Keith and he's like, no, then I get a call from Steve Stevens, who's Billy Idol's guitar player.
Yeah.
And he's like, and Steve has kind of this New York accent. Mark, this is Steve Stevens, and Billy's not producing this, but our drummer's in rehab. We need a drummer. We're playing the end title theme for the movie Speed. Can you come down and play? I'm like, you bet your ass and come.
Wow, on the Speed soundtrack?
Yes,
wow.
I played the end title theme.
Wow,
so I came
that,
down. And I played that one song, and then for the next 8 years, I was Billy Idol's drummer. I was all of that. And I did a bunch of stuff. I played on Steve's solo record, and I ended up doing this big Japanese tour. And then I get a call from Keith. Keith's like, man, I got called to do the Mario Brothers film. I got called to do a Simple Minds track for Mario Brothers. Can you come down and play? Because they had a fight with Mel Gaynor, the great drummer from Simple Minds. And so he called me. So one song turned into nearly the entire record. And my friend Mark Brown, that same guy that had told me about Foreigner, because Keith's like, bring your own bass player. So I call up Mark. Mark's, said, Mark, you want to come down and play on this record for like $2,000 a day? He's like, let me think. Yeah, okay. So I ended up playing nearly the entire record. Then they asked me to do the tour. By that point, I've been playing with Foreigner for a few years. I quit Foreigner, did Simple Minds. So I got all of those gigs because I made one phone call.
Right.
Because I was ballsy enough and tenacious enough to realize that if I put it out there, and that's the problem with most artists, they don't do that.
Right. And we talked about that on the first podcast. Just a lot of people don't think they have the makeup to do that. They're maybe they feel like they're a little shy or, I can't do that, but it's imperative when you're chasing a dream or a goal or that you have those moments where you're bold enough to say, hey, give me the call. Hey, I'm here.
Dude,
or wave your hand or whatever. Hey, I'm right here.
It didn't take a lot.
Yeah.
And I was nervous. It's not like, oh, yeah, I feel great. I told him my hand was shaking. I'm like, Keith, it's Mark Schulman. Give me a call. And I didn't expect him to call. But I thought, I need to do this because I also believe in sort of that the universe responds to what we do. And I've often found that I get rewards for actions that I've taken by doing other things when I least expect them.
Right.
So, you might be pounding on the door, and you're just about to give up, and all of a sudden somebody taps you on the back, and the opportunity's there for something.
Yeah.
But that one phone call made me $1 million.
Yeah, for sure.
Seriously, it's like by the time I all played with all those artists, all the records, all the recordings, all the touring, playing Billy, recording, writing with Billy. We wrote songs together. There was a lot of work, and So I can't say that I don't like I'm responsible. You know, I feel like it's the universe and decisions that come through me. I'm very egoless about things that happen. I just feel
You're like a
we
vessel.
get inspiration.
Yeah.
I'm the vessel. I'm the conduit.
Right.
But it is my responsibility to do the work.
Right. And one of my favorite things is the tenacity, but also success being when preparation meets opportunity.
Perfect. I love that definition. That's great.
Exactly. And by making the phone call, by charting out the music, by being prepared,
and by nailing that sucker on the first take.
Yes.
But again, it's like the stars were aligned because I was prepared. I was, on my game, man. I could go in and nail sessions. I mean, for my things, like if it takes me more than 2 or 3 takes to do something, I got a pretty simple pop song. I mean, I've these crazy fusion tracks but if I'm doing a simple pop song, man, if I don't nail it in like 2 or 3 takes, I'm disappointed with myself. Because I also feel like there's an excitement that you get from the spontaneity of recording. And if you can get something and you can get it early, you'll never recapture the newness. It's like the first kiss, right?
Right, yeah.
The first kiss
That's
is different
than
which we talked about
the second or third or fourth kiss. And the second or third or fourth kiss can be freaking awesome. And hopefully it is. Or like with my wife, hopefully the 2 millionth kiss is still good. But you know what I'm saying? There's something about the first kiss, about the first take, something about that's why we were talking earlier. It's like, keep this goddamn thing rolling. Don't miss a thing. Because I can't tell you how many sessions where we were like, okay, we're just going to run this. We're going to just play a couple of rehearsal takes. And we slam it. And then we're like, you got that, right? And the engineer's like,
no.
Oh, I forgot to press record. It's like,
oh,
dude, really? Are you a novice? Are you a baby? I mean, press record because that's where the magic happens.
We were talking about this on the way over because I used to do commercials and stuff, and it was very much like, okay, everybody be quiet, and then they give you that one action, and then you've really got to. But the smart directors would go, hey, we're just going to run through it once.
Right.
And everybody just relax and, just, okay, let's just do this, And then they would always go back to that first take that we did. Of course, you always had to do several more takes after that, but they generally ended up going back to that because it's that newness that you're talking about.
Well,
Right?
the key, what you just said, is there's no pressure.
Right.
Yeah. Because if you feel like, oh, it's just a rehearsal, there's something about your mind that just thinks, oh, I can have fun, I can open myself up a little bit. Or there's also that feeling like, oh, we've got one in the can that's great, so now just play one and have fun. And that's also often the take that we will end up
that
using.
Improvisational thing that
because
happens
there's a little bit more looseness and a little bit more like fun and a little bit more like reckless abandon, right? As a drummer,
which is the magic, really, right? Isn't it?
You can get magic in that too. So as long as like you can do anything to take the pressure off, then you're rocking, you're laughing. Or for a guy like me, it's like it's not pressure. I'm like. One of my concepts I even talk about when I speak is the difference between have to versus get to. Right. If I'm ever feeling a sense of pressure or strain or hesitancy or reluctance, I shift my have to's to get to's. I get to do this. And the moment I do that, it becomes a choice.
See, it's sort of like that same idea of saying, hey, we're just running it through. Don't worry about it. We're not, it's just let your mind get out of the way.
The mindset, the perception.
Perfect.
Right.
Perfect way of saying
one of the really fascinating things that because we've known each other for a long time, we're really good friends, and I just have always been so inspired by you, and that's why I'm just really so excited to have you on today because
about being here, man.
That's what this podcast is about. That's the concept that Snotty came up with. Let's inspire people. And
thank you.
And so we did our first podcast, and then now you're our first guest, which we're so honored. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be the first guest, and I'm caffeinated, and life is good.
Exactly.
We're in Point Doom. If you guys could you can see how beautiful it is. Look behind Snotty.
Amazing.
Look how gorgeous that is.
Yes.
It's like you live in heaven, brother.
Yeah, he does. 100%. But one of the things that I learned about you that I didn't know all these years that we've known each other is that you started out as a cellist when you were a kid.
And well, that's a funny story.
Because part of the concept here is like telling that revelation story about what shifted you to chase that dream, and go after your dream, which you have expanded on that by a million times. Now you've lived all those dreams, and now you're even in the realm of now encouraging other people to go after it and chase it. That's why it's so perfect that you're here. But I was just really curious about that transition that, you're this cellist, you're classically trained, you're playing with the Junior LA Philharmonic, was it?
LA Junior Philharmonic.
Right? And
let me tell you the story though. Let me tell the absolute truth, right?
Right.
So I was old enough to see the Beatles on Ed Sullivan when I was 2 years old. So the Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
Wow. February 23rd, 1964.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I remember, when was it?
February 23rd.
Yeah. So I was probably 2.5 years old.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and I remember this
Twist
shit,
and shout.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm glued to the TV because my whole family, even my conservative parents, my brother's 6 years older than me. So of course he wants to see it because he's a musician. So I remember seeing John, Paul, and George, and I remember just seeing Ringo, and something resonated, just that big, beautiful nose, that smell, and the way that he would shift his little drumsticks.
The mop top.
Yeah, and then I saw the Screaming Girls, and I was like, I'm in!
Yeah.
And from that moment on, I was hooked.
Yeah.
That young. As a drummer, I didn't choose drums. Drums chose me because I don't know what it was. Something resonated deep inside. And then I'm I always wanted to play drums. But my brother was playing violin already. And my parents were both college professors. And my dad loved classical music.
That's how that happened.
So I was like,
curious.
Mom, I want to play drums. I want to play drums. She's like, and they're like, drums are too loud. Can't you play a nice instrument like your brother Randy? He plays violin. So my brother was being taught by my Uncle Ben, who was my godfather. So I used to go to the
I love his rice.
lessons. What's that?
I love his rice.
Yeah,
exactly.
He makes good rice too. So I used to go to my brother's violin lessons. And remember there was this tall violin standing in the corner. And first I started playing piano and I just sucked. I just didn't get it. It just wasn't my thing. I sat at a drum set at 5 years old and could play. But my parents still didn't, wasn't a thing. I started playing piano, not getting it. But I saw this thing standing in the corner and I'm like, I want to play that. So I started playing cello.
Cello, Mark.
So it was it was a surrogate, but I could play, and then I started, then we actually had an orchestra back then in our elementary school. It wasn't publicly funded, but we had a volunteer teacher that would come in. So I actually learned how to play in orchestras and play cello, and then my godfather would give me a little drum lesson because he was a band teacher, so he gave me a little drum lesson. And eventually at 9 years old, I got my first drum set.
Wow.
And I'll never forget, my brother showed me, it was in my parents' closet for a month before Hanukkah, right? And every time my parents would go out, time my parents would go out, man, I'd just go and just sit in front of that drum set, And then like 6 in the morning of Hanukkah, it's Hanukkah!
What kind of kit was it?
It was a Radio King Slingerland 1939 kit that I wish I freaking had right now, dude.
Can you imagine?
With a Radio King snare drum.
Wow.
What color was it?
It was white.
Ooh,
painted
nice.
white.
Love it.
But they just couldn't deny it anymore. And then they were so cool because my parents were, two college professors with their bedroom right next to mine that was every waking hour drumming.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
I played in a band when I was 9, and then I played my first professional gig the night of my bar mitzvah. I was still 12. I had a professional gig. I cared more about the gig than my bar mitzvah. I was playing with a horn band. I was going to make $50, man. Then from the age of 14 on, I was playing every weekend. Bar mitzvahs and weddings. My friend Steve Diamond, still one of my best friends. He was the kid who, I was youngest, so he was 2 years older than me. He had the business acumen. So he was booking these gigs, man. We're putting on tuxes and playing weddings and bar mitzvahs and making $150, $200 each in the 70s on the weekends. I never even got to play in marching band. I wanted to play in marching band, but I was too busy playing gigs.
How did it feel getting that first paycheck for playing drums?
It was unbelievable. So I'm saying it was the night of my bar mitzvah.
Do you remember what you did with it?
What's that?
Do you remember what you did with the money?
No, because what I did is I took all the money, all my bar mitzvah money, and bought my first 4-track. Talk about analog tape.
Right.
Yeah. And I was the one that was recording all my bands as we were growing up. So I was the producer. You got a little mixer, and my brother had another 4-track, and how we would bounce tracks. So we'd have multi-track. Wow. So we had 4 tracks Then we'd bounce it onto the other 4-track to 2 tracks. Then we'd have 2 more tracks. We keep on bouncing it back and forth, just getting noisier and noisier and noisier. But we could do like 16 tracks recording.
That's really cool. That's so cool.
You're industrious as a kid,
Yeah,
right?
I'm loving this because I always perceived it to be, okay, well, Mark was this, this classically trained young cellist, and then something sparked him to do the drums, but now I'm hearing it was always drums for you, which makes sense. It makes total sense.
I could play cello decent. I actually played cello on the Pink tour because I hadn't. My brother, for whatever reason, as a gift, bought me some little cheap Chinese cello, so I started kind of picking it up when I was right before I started playing with Pink. And then on one of the Pink tours, there was one song that she did called "I Don't Believe You," and there was no drums. And it was in the key of C, thank God. And
See, I can do it.
And Eva, the bass player, is still one of my best friends, man. She played stand-up bass, and Jesse Green was playing violin and cello on the tour. And so they were going to put together a little string section. And Paul Merkovich, who was the MD, for The Voice, was the MD for Pink at the time. And I kept on telling Paul and Pink, Alicia, I play cello. I play cello. I play cello. And so finally they said, all right, we'll give it a shot. So I ended up playing cello during that song. So I jumped off the drums, and we went to the front of the satellite stage, and I played cello.
How long had it been since you played cello?
Well,
you just jumped off the drums.
I started brushing up because cello's not like an instrument you could just pick up and play.
Right.
So I started practicing. I was only playing about 12 long notes in the key of C, so it wasn't that hard. But it was still cool.
I think I would find that hard.
But here was the funniest part. Like my daughter now, who's 12, so back at that time, I think she was only 2 or 3. So I'm like, I'm gonna keep on playing cello. So I'd go into her den, and I start playing cello. She'd start crying.
Oh wow!
Daddy, stop! Like, okay, I guess I'm not cut out to play cello anymore, man.
Or was it the long, sad notes in the key?
No, I think she was just like, Daddy, it sounds like shit.
Minor notes.
Right.
So yeah, I don't call myself a cellist out of respect to cello players now, But I did conduct my junior high school graduation orchestra and won most talented.
So there you go.
I was playing drums and cello.
Of course.
In my opinion, you're still a cellist as well.
Thanks, buddy, but I don't disrespect cellos. Just like I don't call myself a percussionist either.
Right.
Because percussionists can play percussion. I play drum set. I mean, I could play a conga pattern and a cowbell.
But
when you're a great percussionist, right, you don't call yourself a percussionist when you're a drum set player.
We count to 4 and start over. That's our thing.
Right.
But I think having the background in cello probably brought a different mindset, a different musicality.
Oh, dude, you know what it did?
When you sat at the drums.
Well, it everything influences everything else. So everything you know musically. But what it did is it gave me a very acute sense of pitch. So my pitch is quite acute. So because I sing as well and I arrange vocals, so I was doing a lot of backing vocals for a lot of my artists because I know harmony. I studied harmony as well, but I could hear an orchestra right now and tell you if somebody's out of tune.
Oh, I like it.
Because I just kind of developed that. Because when you're playing a string instrument without frets, you have to make immediate adjustments. I mean, if your ear is decent, you immediately make those minute adjustments. I even remember reading some article with one of the great, like Jascha Heifetz or one of these great violinists, and they said that they still will make the quickest minute tuning adjustments because nobody else will hear it, but they will get it because they still need to, because you're still playing, especially a violin, this is a teeny little fretboard, these big old fat man fingers, and it has to be perfectly in tune, if you're a master anyway. And so you're always still making adjustments. And me as a cello player, certainly, and one that isn't that great, I'm making adjustments like, oh crap, especially when you're going into third or fourth position, you're going higher on the neck, and all of a sudden it's a little bit more difficult, Whereas if you're just playing guitar, man, it's like, you got frets or fretted bass,
Yeah.
So I have a lot of respect for people who play fretless instruments, because the need for a stronger sense of intonation is a lot more acute, right?
How did that feel I know you have the confidence behind the drum set for those large Pink audiences, but stepping out with the cello.
Well, at first I was a little, I had practiced a lot.
Yeah.
just for my
Preparation
12
meets
notes in
opportunity.
C.
Yeah.
Because when Mom was on the road, it was like I wasn't practicing the pink parts really,
Yeah.
because we'd already practiced those a gazillion times. But the cello parts, excuse me, every day, I'd be like an hour or two at least, just practicing my long notes and just making sure I heard myself really loud on my in-ear monitors. Like, I got to be the loudest thing to make sure that I can hear myself. It was cool. It was. I'll tell you, what was really kind of a little weird was going from drums to cello though.
Right. Yeah.
Because cello is so delicate, and it's not like I'm playing bebop or brushes or something. I'm going from that to like
hard hitting,
Spinning sticks,
like stadium rock,
slamming drums. Yeah.
So that was an interesting curve to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
So that said, so you were always a drummer. We've established that since
Yeah,
the age, since
I'm a
Ringo.
drummer, man. That's like, come on, that's who I am.
So then you were getting all these gigs with your buddy was a businessman. That was cool. You started getting paid by the time you were 13 or whatever. Yeah. When was it that you said, okay, now I'm going to zero in and go after the career. I'm going to go after the dream and, to work with all these amazing people to, pursue the sort of larger dream of the drum career?
Well, the God's honest truth was, my parents were both college professors. I was a grammar and composition tutor. My dad had a PhD, wrote 4 college-level grammar books. They weren't musical. Like the last thing, and like they said I had a high IQ, so they're like the last thing they expected was a damn drummer. They thought I was going to be like a dentist, attorney, or something. But I never saw anything else. I only saw myself as a drummer. I even went to Cal State Northridge, but I dropped out to play music full time, right? So for me, it's like, that was it. That's all I cared about. So I remember I did one of the pivotal moments for me, though, was I was living in Portland, Oregon. I moved up there with a band, and there was a great artist named Dan Reed of Dan Reed Network in the 80s. And he was a good friend. And they had like gotten a record deal. They were opening for Bon Jovi and Journey. So he's friends with the Journey guys. And the Journey guys are putting together this band called Bad English, right? Ooh, so Dan calls me one day, he goes, dude, I got you an audition for Bad English, man. I think you're ready. You should come in. You should slay this and get this gig. And it was Neil Sean and John Waite and Jonathan Cain from, all these, really heavy hitters.
Like legit established guys,
yeah, like
right?
Really legit stuff. But they wanted a younger drummer, right? So I went in and I got the chance to audition, and all my flaws came out. I was so nervous. I was rushing. It was incredible, man. It was my first book. I wrote a book called Conquering Life Stage Fright. Yeah. The impetus of writing the book was how miserably I failed that audition. Because I started playing and I was rushing, and Jonathan Cain, the keyboard player, stops and he says, man, you're rushing. I said, oh, man, okay. So then I was even more nervous. So I play it again. Then I stop 30 seconds later. He picks up a metronome, timekeeping device, chucks it across the stage, lands at the base of my hi-hat stand, so the light is flashing. He says, just watch the light. I was like, oh. So I'm watching the light. Then I'm realizing, wait, I got to look up and look like a rock star. Then I'm watching the light. And after, I actually made it through, and we were just jamming, basically. I didn't know the songs. I didn't have to learn anything because they were a new band. And after they're done, Jonathan Cain gets up and, to shake my hand. And I thought, and I looked up and Ricky Phillips was a bass player. So to this day, man, I love Ricky. He was like the guy that was really egging me on, and being cool, like sort of telegraphing,
kind of leaning into it with you. Yeah.
And rhythm so when I was done, he was like, good job. And Jonathan Cain gets up to shake my hand, and I'm thinking maybe they like me. He's like, thanks, Mark. We'll give you a call. And that was it.
And
and I picked up my sticks and I went out to I was in tears, man. I went out to the car and I remember hitting the steering wheel going, doctor, attorney, dentist, why didn't I listen to my Jewish parents and just do that? I was literally I was going to give up. I went home, I crawled in bed with my rock and roll boots and all my jewelry on. I pulled the covers over my head. I'm and then I just literally kicked the covers off and said, you know what? This is a definitive time for me.
Right. It's an important lesson, right?
This is either the moment I'm going to jump off the stage forever, or I'm going to fix my flaws.
Right.
And I made 2 promises right there. One was that nobody was ever going to tell me I'm speeding up or slowing down unless I want to speed up or slow down. Because it's not that it's bad to speed up or slow down. It's just bad to get nailed for it if you're not supposed to. And I said, 2, I want to be able to manifest and transpose this fear into confidence. And that was part. I was kind of already on the spiritual journey where I was reading a lot of spiritual books and studying with this gentleman, Dr. Jim Samuels, who's the co-writer of my second book, was like the mentor of my life. And I had stopped partying. I wasn't drinking, doing any drugs. I was really clean. I was like, you know what? And then I found the rhythm course, which was a course designed specifically for developing your internal sense of time.
Oh, wow.
Taught by this guy named Jamie Font. And here's the interesting question. It's like you ask people. And I even asked Charlie Burchell when I was playing in Simple Minds. I said, man, do you think it's the drummer's job to keep the time, or is it everybody's job? And Charlie, he talks like he's like this, the strongest Scottish accent. He's like, Mark, of course it's the drummer's job, It's not true. It's everybody's job to keep the time. Because if you think about a rhythm section, right, it's the combined way that everybody feels time that makes each rhythm section feel the way it feels. Like you listen to Led Zeppelin and everybody always thought that John Bonham was behind the beat. That's because Jimmy Page was pushing the beat.
Right.
And John Paul Jones, the bass player, was somewhere in the middle. So it was all musicians enrolled in the rhythm course. So I spent 2 years of my life like really focusing on developing my internal sense of rhythm to the point where I wouldn't even be shaken if I was nervous. And it worked. And so when I got the chance to play with Brenda Russell, from that point on, it was all good.
And again,
to this
preparation meets opportunity.
Right. To this day, nobody's ever told me I was speeding up or slowing down unless I wanted to speed up.
Yes.
Which in the case of like playing the Cher gig, I remember playing the song Turn Back Time. We used to joke, me and Paul Merkovich, same guy, same musical director. We would start it like, the record tempo was like 106, like really slow. We'd start at like 118 because she'd want it fast. And by the end, we'd be up to like 130. And I'd be watching her skip. You could tell by the way she was singing, like, so we'd just be rushing and rushing because that's what she wanted. Cha-ching, she's paying my freaking paycheck. I'm not going to like, just, hey, I got to keep perfect time. No, you go with what the musicians
I'm going to hold
go.
Cher onto the beat.
Yeah, and there were nights even, I remember with Foreigner, man, I used to play, we had a few of the songs I'd play. I was always controlling the sequencing for my chair because I would have like, I'd use like a momentary pedal and I'd start and stop sequences with my left foot, so I would never have to use a pad, right? And we had like some backing vocals and some other things. And I remember one night, like we were playing a song, and Lou Gramm, the singer, singers are classic for wanting to go really fast, right? Singers always want to rush,
especially live.
Live, yeah. So it depends on. And sometimes the band is just dragging, like everybody's tired, depends on how much coffee you've had or how much sleep you've had. So Lou's like, pick it up, man, come on, we gotta go faster. And like, I'm playing with a click. I can't really pick it up. So I said, hell with it. Just turned off the click. So the samples were gone and we just kind of went. And he's like, great, So you just do what's the highest good of all concerned, right? So it's not about like my ego.
Sometimes the organic rhythm too, like once it's set, it kind of just, it rides the song out. You don't have to be, it's good to have that click and have that solid foundation.
Well, I became such a stickler for tempo that I was always like wanting to click.
Right.
When I joined Stevie Nicks, or when I was auditioning for Stevie Nicks, even when I auditioned for Cher, they didn't even know, but I had my little Walkman headphones and a little, disguised like click hidden. And I remember Waddy Wachtel, the musical director, said
the legend,
before we auditioned,
Waddy.
Yeah, he said, "Oh, Stevie hates clicks, man." I said, "Great." I played every song for the audition,
even with the click.
With a click, played every song for 5 weeks, every rehearsal with a click, because my idea is, I feel like I know that what we're trying to do is we're trying to create muscle memory. So when you get to the stage, because your natural, whatchamacallit, what's the word? I'm spacing on the word.
Inner metronome.
Internal rhythm?
No, your excitement, your natural inner
excitement.
Oh,
yeah.
Your endorphins and stuff, your adrenaline, thank you,
yeah.
is always going to push you faster, right? So I was just trying to create as much muscle memory as I could, Another story I had is I got called to play. My friend Dave Koz wanted to do like, he's a smooth jazz guy, and they would do all this programming stuff, and everything was super R&B. He wanted to do like more of an organic record. So they didn't want to use any click tracks, and they wanted to play like with acoustic guitars and, drums with like, I was using like one brush and one stick. And they didn't want to use a metronome. But I also knew Tom Panunzio who was the engineer, he's like, yeah, we're going to cut different verses and choruses from different takes together. And immediately I'm thinking, train wreck. And I don't want to say that I know better than anybody else, because I don't. But I do know one thing, and that's that if you're going to cut takes together, you damn well better be using a click track. So I had the big big studio headphones, and underneath I was playing every song to a click track, and they never knew, right? But then a couple weeks later, Panunzio calls me up and goes, man, I got to tell you, your time is perfect. It was so easy, and he called me to do like 4 more records. But that's because I had the insight to understand at least what he was doing. And not that I would ever say, do what someone tells you not to do, but sometimes if you have your own insights and it can be better for the highest good of all concerned, not because of my ego, I give a shit about my ego, but I knew that the continuity of having the same tempo, both for the Stevie Nicks gig and even for the Dave Koz studio, really made a difference. And because I had become such a stickler, because I had freaked out a few years earlier, so in the back of my head I'm like, no man, just because your tempo is solid does not mean, because people were thinking, and still to this day they think, you play with a click, you're stiff. No, it just means you have good tempo.
Right.
I remember when I studied with Joe Porcaro, who was one of the great, rest in peace, one of the greatest teachers, Jeff's dad. He always told me, he said, man, I'm playing in the studio, I was playing with clicks my whole life because I play all these, I'm playing a movie soundtracks and the clicks are moving and they're changing. He said, I always acted like a click was just a percussionist with really good time, playing with a cowbell, right? When I did the Stevie Nicks gig, I played live with Lenny Castro. That guy has seriously great time. It's like Buddha, like he plays the cowbell. That shit ain't moving. So I never was intimidated by the click. Once I, got really comfortable, I thought it's just like a percussionist with a good time.
But and also I think the lesson is, because we're talking about how people have to chase your dreams, you're going to have that time where you fail or it doesn't go right.
You have to fail.
And this is a classic case.
You have to learn how to fail.
Yeah, exactly. And what you were just saying really speaks to that. But you got to pick yourself up and figure out what you need to do to continue to pursue that, and how you can make the adjustments along the way. Like you're here with the covers up over your head, and you kick those things off, and then you go, okay, wait a minute, I'm going to figure out how to improve on this, and I'm still going to go for the dream. I'm not going to let this crush me, because a lot of people do get so crushed by one bad thing that it just scrambles them, and they don't have the the wherewithal to keep pushing through and making something good out of the bad experience. So I think that's,
there are one or two ways of looking at it. You either use these opportunities to make you stronger or to make you weaker. It's kind of like what's that style of martial arts that Steven Seagal is known for, where he takes people's energy and uses it against them? So you take the energy and it's
Krav Maga.
It's called
something like
or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's called owning. So if you take a situation like that where you have a failure, you can own the failure and use it to inspire you and make you stronger and make you try harder, or you can take the experience and have it weaken you and weaken your confidence. And I've always been the kind of guy that's like, I'm too tenacious and I'm too driven to take a failure and use that as an excuse to quit, when I get to use that as an excuse to make me stronger and try even harder. And that's why that was a definitive moment when I was lying in my bed, because that was the moment I either made the decision, I'm either going to let it crush me, or I'm going to say, the hell with that. I'm going to get a rhythm course. I'm going to make myself better. I'm going to get more confident, and I'm going to build this up. And I did.
From a psychological...
And we all have that choice.
Yes.
And the choice can also be a very spontaneous choice, like in all these different situations. Even when you're dating somebody, right? Any kind of like negative feedback you might get, you can use that in that moment to strengthen you for the next moment to be better, or you can use that in that moment to tear you down. And it's your decision at that moment. Right. And you make the pre-conscious decision at that moment, whether you're aware of it or not.
So what would you say to the people that don't think they're tenacious and driven enough to push through? Like, what's that key to pushing through?
How to flip the switch.
Yeah.
Change it from a get to a have to.
I like
Bam. It. So simple. You say, okay, I get the opportunity to improve. I get the opportunity to learn. Because if you didn't learn that, whatever you need to learn right then and there, you wouldn't have necessary information to have the success you need anyway. Because if I hadn't gotten shaken up, because Jonathan Cain did something so dramatic as to throw a metronome at me. I mean, what could be more like
It's like the movie
shocking
Whiplash.
Like,
yeah.
you suck.
and
Here's a
revealing
metronome.
than that?
Right.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't, we learn. Tony Robbins says something very, very
we love
interesting
Tony.
and clear. I love
We
Tony.
love Tony,
But
yeah.
Tony says you're more motivated to avoid pain than you are to pursue pleasure. Right? So if you're put in a painful enough situation, you want to avoid it. So what I would do is like, okay, you want to avoid the pain, then you need to figure out a way to take that pain and turn it into something that's going to be constructive.
The have to
But
to the get to.
Yeah. And that's why I switched to have to get to. But you need the pain to motivate you.
Right.
Because we don't learn. It's like every child, it's like, not that every child should touch fire to learn that fire is bad, but let's face it.
That's
we
how I
learned
am.
our
Yeah.
biggest step.
It's hot? You can't tell me. I need
Yeah.
to touch the stove to know,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, you don't want to burn your kid or anything. but we are so motivated to learn from our failures and from our pains. Those stick with us. And so if you're just smart enough at the time, either consciously or pre-consciously, to realize that that's an opportunity for you. And again, it's one of my biggest fears is a missed opportunity. Seriously. Like, I auditioned for Stevie Nicks. I missed the audition a few years earlier. And I'll never forget, man, I was so angry. Like, how come I'm so well connected, and I've been calling people. I'm really tenacious about letting people know I exist and I'm here and I'm ready. And somehow I didn't find out about this audition. And I was so upset that I didn't know about it. Because missed opportunities crush me. They mess me up. I mean, they don't crush me, but they make me want to try even harder. They get me motivated to make sure, like, I missed that. Okay, I got to work even harder. I got to call more people and more musicians and more producers and let everybody I know, So that's just it. My thing is, like, to avoid the pain of a missed opportunity, I want to do everything I can do to be aware of all the opportunities and to create opportunities and to pursue opportunities and to see opportunities where others don't. Like my speaking career, right? I'm a very successful speaker now. I've taken 1,000 drum clinics. I did music clinics, and transformed that into a successful corporate speaking career because I saw the opportunity. I realized that I'm playing for drummers, man. I'm not making a hell of a lot of money. I'm telling some great stories. I'm doing some great playing, but they're resonating more with the success coaching. They want to hear the stories.
Yeah.
And they want to know why I'm up there and they're not. So then I thought, I was actually talking to Dom Famularo, one of the great drummers of our day, and he's a very motivating drummer. And he said that he was doing a drum clinic, and some guy walks up. His kid was there for the drum clinic. The guy's like, I have a little corporation, man. You're so motivating. Will you come and speak at my corporation? And the guy's like, I was thinking I could probably pay you about $7,000. Now we're making about $700 doing those drum clinics. So Dom's like, yeah. And the guy's like, don't change a thing. Just do what you do. So in the back of my head, I thought, man, I could do that. If I really started to understand what kind of content and what motivated people in these conventions, then I could actually create almost like a one-man show where I'm still playing drums, talking about the artist, telling great stories, but attaching learning points that are applicable to the corporate world. And so I started building it. And it took me years to get it right, man. It's not like, oh, man, I was great. No, at the beginning, I sucked.
Yeah, I love it. That really
I saw some of my early corporate speeches. It's like, oh, man.
Yeah, but you know what? That really speaks to building on the dream. It's one thing to go after the dream, chase it, and you get a certain level of success, and a certain amount of the dream comes true and comes real.
Yeah.
But then you build on it, and I love how you've built on that with this speaking for a lot of the listeners that are out there they don't know, but now you have transitioned a little bit, not away from your music, but towards your new...
Yeah. Well, I quit the Pink tour.
Yeah.
I actually quit touring.
Yeah.
To speak full time because it has a stronger calling for me. I still get to play drums, still get to tell stories, but I get to it's got a deeper level of purpose and a deeper level of communication, because communicating as a musician on stage is one type of communication. Communicating as a teacher is another kind of communication. So I'm combining the two. And then I get to be in this different context with people that are, I get on stage, these corporate people like, why is the drummer for Pink or, the drummer for all these people up here? Like, what am I going to get from him?
And then all of a sudden it's a standing ovation.
They have no idea what they're in store for, because I worked so hard studying with 2 speaking coaches, an acting coach, a director, a storyteller, and really refining it and making it into like a one-man show.
Again, building on the dream.
And it's like paying it forward. You know, you've had all the success, all these opportunities.
But it goes back to what I originally said, is recognizing an opportunity that I wouldn't have recognized if I didn't have my eyes open and see, well, I can use, because for me, I'm very egoless about it. I feel like my talent has come through me. My ability to communicate has come through me. It's my only job, my only responsibility is to put it back out there. And it's not about how great I am. It's like, how hard am I willing to work?
It's a responsibility. You're right.
Is,
yeah.
Right?
To give back to
I never look at it as like,
there.
it's me. I look at it as like I have a platform because I have played with all these famous artists. I don't, the iron is like, they hire me as a rock star drummer to come and speak. I don't look at myself as a rock star.
But you are.
No, but I look at myself. But here's the thing. I look at myself.
But we love the humility.
As working, but check it out. Check out the difference, though. In my mind, I look at myself as I work for rock stars. So I understand, and I've studied them. I've watched everybody, and why are they successful? Because there's no accident success. You don't become Pink, you don't become Cher, you don't become Simple Minds, you don't become Foreigner, any of these people. There's no accident. I mean, there are real definitive reasons and combinations of reasons why these people are successful. So I look at that and I study that. And I try to figure out why. So then I can tell those stories and talk about how cool those people are in my speech. I talk about myself as well, but I talk a lot about them. I use them as role models because people love to hear the stories. They love to hear what goes on,
I love the way you extrapolate all these positives out of the rock star lifestyle and experience, the kind of magic of that, all that, and how you've parlayed that in not only into the book but into your speaking, motivational speaking aspects, but relating it to the musical rock star experience. I think that's so cool. And
the idea is to make them feel like rock stars. Yeah. My program is called Hacking the Rockstar Attitude. So my thing is, and at the end I bestow upon this corporate group their own band name. The idea is how are you guys going to feel like rock stars? How are you going to take this information and apply it to your lives? So you can have a little bit more swagger in everything you do and slightly change your association with what you had viewed as a mundane IT position now with a little bit of swagger, right?
Yeah.
So that's the idea. That's the goal of what I want to do.
And let's talk about the fact that now that you're making this transition, not away from music, but towards your speaking career, which is blowing up right now. For all the listeners out there that might not know you as well as we do, you're doing Microsoft, you're doing Dell, you're doing Disney, you're doing major networks.
I haven't done Disney yet, but soon.
Okay, cool.
But
major
close,
networks.
The first two are right.
Major, even really cool musical, like Guitar Center and Gretsch and all that.
Well, I mean, all of the corporate stuff came from doing like a gazillion drum clinics for Gretsch and the other drum companies I work for, and going to every little music store all over the world.
So that was kind of your boot camp for developing this next level thing that you're doing
without knowing it. I mean, I was just doing it for the love of doing the clinics, because I also I like to stay busy, man. When I'm on the road, I'm not the guy that just sits and eats bonbons on his day off kind of thing. I want to do something. There's a day off, man. Where am I? I can do a drum clinic at a little local music store, and
It speaks to the productivity that you talk about in some of your books and in some of your speakings.
Well, I just like to do shit, and I really love the chance to teach, and I love the chance to be able to inspire. Because I feel like, that's what we're here to do, right?
But it also speaks to what Sonny was saying about paying it forward, because we feel
Absolutely.
like
that's what it is.
Right.
It's all about paying it forward.
Right. We feel like a lot of people pursue the dream, they get to the dream, and then they have this platform, but they forget how to pay it forward. They forget when they were someone on the way up.
That's only not even half of
and
the battle.
One of the great things that I truly love about you is that when I first met you, a friend of mine from Amsterdam, rock and roll guitarist, came here to the States. And I had met him in Amsterdam, and I was at a wedding in Amsterdam. And through mutual friends, we met, and we hung out in Amsterdam. And then when he was coming to the States, our mutual friend said, hey, here's GM's number. Call GM when you get to LA. GM's, on the scene, and he'll, And that was Nard. And Nard, ended up building a good little career, doing all the music jingles and sort of what you were doing for McDonald's.
Really good career.
Really. I mean, he bought a house here on the West Side and did really well. And I remember at one point I was trying to get him to produce some tracks for me. I was working on a music project, and I needed some tracks produced. And he kept saying, well, I'm so busy. But he kept bringing up this guy named Mark Schulman, Pink's drummer. He kept saying, well, Pink's drummer, you should talk to Mark. He's got a studio, because I think you had just started West Triad. And he says, no, you should talk to Mark. And then I thought, ooh, Pink's drummer. Okay, yeah, that would be somebody because I just wanted some rhythm tracks produced. to get the project jump started, because then I could bring in all the guitars and work with George on my vocals and do all that stuff. And he kind of kept begging off a little bit, because he was just so busy. But you should call this Mark guy. So I said, well, why don't you introduce me to this Mark Schulman guy? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, ooh, Pink's drummer, that's even better than Nard.
It was a cold call, wasn't it?
Well, no, yeah. What happened was he didn't end up introducing me to you. He ended up just saying, hey, here's the number, give him a call. And I don't know if you remember this, but this is also speaking to how you pay it forward, and I love you so much for that, because it's a good lesson for people to know.
And their GM was just handshaking. Oh, Mark Schulman.
I'm like, I'm going to call this Mark Schulman guy.
My thing is why would anybody be nervous calling me?
Well, it's really funny. I got you on the phone, and I thought, well, this guy's going to be a busy guy too. I mean, he seems busier than Nard, and Nard's begging off. Yeah. But I'm again, like, you got to put it out there and have the chutzpah to just call people and say, hey, here I am. I need something from you, even if you
Tenacity.
don't know them. Exactly. And so I called you up, and you probably don't remember this, but it sounded like you were busy. And I was trying to ingratiate myself with you by how much I knew Nard. So I'm going into the story about how we met in Amsterdam, and I'm a really good friend of Nard's, because I knew you knew Nard well. Yeah. So I thought that would, kind of speed the plow a little bit with you, because I was just about to ask you to do something for me, and it was a cold call, and I don't even know you. And it was so great, because not even in an off-putting or, pushy way, you just said, okay, so what can I do for you? And it was great, because you just opened that door. I was trying to go on and on about how much I knew Nard and how close we were, and kind of make way that way.
Well, you love to talk.
And you just said, yes. And someo's got to listen.
Yeah, someone's got to listen. But I think I was like, what do you need, man? Like, just tell me what you need.
And I love that. You said, what do you need? And I said, well, and I had it all mapped out. I've got these 3 tracks, and I'll need these amounts of rhythm tracks done, and blah, 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 blah. And he told me about your studio, and that's what I would be looking to do. And then all of a sudden you just go, and it just kind of pauses for a minute. I'm thinking, oh, wow, this can go one way or the other.
Yeah.
Either I'm too busy, or I don't know you, and you said, I'm looking at my calendar. Can you be at my studio on these days? And I didn't even know what the days are. I didn't care. I was just going to clear my schedule. And I said, absolutely, I can be there. And I came in, and you ended up producing the tracks for me. Subsequently, you ended up playing, drumming on some of my tracks with Eric and everybody.
Right,
And it was just so great. But that's just, for me, that's one of the defining things about you, your positivity and your success, and your ability to chase the dream and capture it, but also the idea that you didn't forget where you came from, and you still like to pay it forward for people that are young and up and coming and trying to make their way. And I think too many people forget that along the way, and I really appreciated that. And it really made a huge impact on me.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah. That's very cool. And I just don't think any differently. Like, to me, it's just natural. Someone calls up, and you recommend it through somebody that I know, so you're already trusted. I'm like, what do you need? How can I help? It's like, if I'm in town, let's do the tracks. If I'm not, we'll do them when I get back. And I was like, ain't no thing, Because to me, it's, first of all, one of my favorite things in the world is just playing drums in the studio. Strip everything away. My wife asked me once, if you could just do one thing in your life, years ago, I said, probably just play drums in the studio. Now the speaking thing is really a big deal.
Yes,
but at the time I was like, I've been touring so much, and I was like, God, man, I just want to because there's something about hearing, as I said, like I talked earlier, like hearing somebody's fresh track and just getting in there and just laying down a couple of fresh first, second, third takes of something that is fresh and
that
new.
First kiss moment.
And I love that.
Yeah.
And just capturing the moment. So for me, it's very exciting. I still do it. I mean, I still do people's records. I love to do it. You know, and almost every record is self-financed because there isn't much music industry left. So it's like people are just paying me to do their records, like from Australia or wherever, you know, like just sending MP3s from God knows where. And, you know, I just had this played on this French guy's record, and I don't even know who he is. But, you know, I just love doing it. I can also bring my friends in because then I can, you know, then Eric gets work. Eric, you know, my studio mate is an engineer. He's like one of the great engineers.
Amazing.
But, you know, the big studios are gone. So now we got this great little room. And then I get Eva playing bass, you know, from the Pink Band. I try to bring in all of our friends, right? So everybody can be a part of it. Well, we all love doing it.
Yeah, I remember when you took off, you had to go on the road on a tour or something. You said, okay, you know, we did these little sessions really quick, and you're such a pro. I just was blown away because you
better than being a con.
You came in and you took like a few little notes, and you know you did one take, and then it was amazing. I think you did, you know, maybe one or two takes, and then you know we were like, okay, well we got all that. You know, it's all done, and then you were so cool. You said, now here's Eric.
Yeah,
our really
Eric's
good
amazing.
friend.
Eric's gonna do the magic.
Eric Gobel.
Yeah,
he's your partner in Triad. Yeah. Amazing producer, amazing engineer.
Yeah, the guy's got ears.
Incredible human being.
Yeah. Well, he's one of my best friends, of course.
And you turned me on to him, and I ended up working a lot more with him over the subsequent years while you were on tour with Pink.
Yeah,
me and him would be in that studio, and it was.
You guys were in the studio a lot.
We were
doing mixing
all the time.
And
and
then
he helped me get the track done too, because I wanted to do some vinyl. So I ended up pressing that 12-inch single, but that was all, you know, rooted in Mark Schulman paying it forward. So, you know, that to me was just something I wanted to illuminate on this podcast. That you know, once you get there, don't forget to pay it forward.
Absolutely.
You know, too many people just forget along the way how to, you know, they forget who they are, maybe, or they buy into too much of what the success or whatever the dream is that has come true for them. And they kind of forget along the way how to give back. So I think that's one of the major lessons.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I totally agree. And I think that for me, it's just kind of part of my makeup, like just wanting to be of service. I look at, funny, about in the last like 5-6 years especially, I realize that everything I do is to be of service. Like when I'm on stage playing drums, like I'm there to be of service to Pink and the band members and the crew members and the audience, and like I'm just there to be of service, really.
Yeah.
It's all a service business. And I mean, you can get as egotistical as you want. The truth is that's all she's there to do as well. It's be of service to her audience. If you're not being of service, then you're just thinking about yourself. And why the hell are you thinking about yourself anyway? Because if you're thinking about yourself, you're not performing. You're not literally putting out what you need to put out for others' benefits. And everything I do, I feel like I've just had this basic philosophy, like if everybody else around me is happy, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I don't need that much, you know? And I think that's where the sort of lack of ego thing is like, I'm not worried about, you know, I'll be taken care of just fine. My wife's happy. It's a happy wife, happy life, happy kid, happy life, happy, you know, client, happy life, happy audience, happy life.
Right.
You know, what do I need, man? It's pretty easy to be happy. I do the work.
Yes.
Get up there, put it out there. It's not about ego. It's not about, oh, aren't I so cool or aren't I a badass for doing it? No, I'm in a very fortunate position that, you know, I have some responsibility in cultivating, but basically it's because I've got some, you know, muse that's flowing through me, and I'm fortunate enough to capture it and have a way of putting it together that it makes sense so other people can enjoy it. And anything above and beyond that's just your freaking ego. And why are you caring so much about yourself or thinking you're so freaking great? I mean, you're not freaking great. I mean, you're great for doing the work, but you're not any greater than anybody else. It's like you are there to be of service to others. Because if you think that it's all about you, without the others, you ain't shit. So like these artists that get too big for their britches, it's like, well, wait a minute. you are only making this amount of money and owning your 50-foot yacht because you're being of service to these other people that are paying you money. So quit with your freaking ego, because without those people, you ain't shit, and you don't have that yacht. You know?
Great revelation lesson, right?
It's pretty simple. It's pretty cut and dry, and
the sooner you realize that, the better. You know?
Yeah, and the people that I respect the most are those people, because you kind of realize that, whatever. I mean, it doesn't mean you're going to make yourself accessible to every single person. I mean, someone, at the level of like Alicia Pink, they got to be very careful, because yes, they're very big celebrities and they need protection and security. But there's a difference between that and having a big ego because of it. The protection and the security is just, it's mandatory for,
to keep the train rolling.
Keep the train rolling and
to
keep everything
being
successful, keep everybody safe, and to continue with this successful component of, again, being of service, really.
Like you were saying at the beginning, you're a vessel,
right,
for the universe, and you get back
That's
what
my
you put
gig,
out.
man. I'm just
you
a
get back
vessel.
what you put out.
Yeah. As long as I do the work, I mean, I do need to be motivated enough to do the work, and I don't always feel like doing the work, but that's when I'll get into that, like I get to do the work, or I'll do, have gratitude, or a lot of attitude shifts. Like the basic concept of my speech is the power of attitude. And so actually there are attitude shifts, and I create conscious attitude shifts, because your attitude is what actually drives your behavior. And you can't control what happens to you, but you can control your attitude. And that's a decision you make. And your behavior is what determines the consequences of your life. So it's A times B equals C. Attitude times behavior equals consequence. It's a very pertinent formula. And it's one that I live by. It's the one I swear by. It's the topic of this next book that's going to come out. And if you remember, at all times, you have that power at any moment to shift your attitude, then you're going to change the outcomes of your life. So it's all about what attitude you want to choose. So the attitudes that I emphasize in my speech, as an example, are the attitude of switching your have-tos to get-tos, and the power of gratitude, the absolute power of gratitude, which is enormous. And so these are some of my little techniques that I use. If I either am getting angry, or feel like maybe I'm getting too egotistical, or I feel like I'm getting whatever I'm getting, I will create conscious attitude shifts right in the moment. And it works. It keeps me humble too, that's for damn sure.
That segues perfectly into Mark Schulman, the author, because I really loved the title of your first major book. I guess it's your first major book, Conquering Life's Stage
Conquering
Fright.
Life Stage Fright. But it's not about that. It's about the 3 steps to top performance. The subtitle, 3 steps to top performance, which are the 3 C's, which is clarity, capability, and confidence. And it's another concept. All these concepts were actually created by Dr. Jim Samuels, who's my dear friend. I did a variation. He says clear, capable, confident. I say clarity, capability, confidence. Because you need to have the way to quote unquote overcome stage fright, or actually refine into top performance, is really what it is. Because the top performance study is have a very, very clear vision about what you want to do and who you want to be. And then you need to develop your capability, like do the goddamn work. And that's what leads to absolute confidence.
Yes, we talked about that on the first podcast. We talked about how be ready when you go to pursue the dream and chase whatever that passion is or whatever that talent is. You better bring your A game, and it takes a work ethic.
Yeah.
So you're speaking to that, because we really feel like a lot of people think, oh, I'll just throw it out there in the air somewhere. No, you got to see it as a work proposition too, like a work ethic.
Absolutely.
You got to want to work for it and towards it.
Well,
and with
the
it.
perfect example, like, when I talk about stage fright, it's like if you go on stage and you're not prepared, you should be freaking scared, man. Because you haven't done the work. If you've done the work and you still have like an excessive amount of stage fright, then, there are a couple of different concepts or techniques that I will use. One being, I I will start to think, well, if I'm super afraid when I go on stage or when I'm going to give a pitch or when I'm going to do a speech or whatever, who am I thinking about? Me. Well, why the hell am I thinking about myself? I'm there to be of service. I should be thinking about them. And the moment I put the concentration on them, when I get out to give a speech, I'm not speaking to 1,000 people. I'm speaking to you and you and you and you. And I'm looking at everybody individually. It's like I'm having individual conversations. That's the way to remember that you really are just talking to one person at a time. That's why I never say you guys. I always say you, because I'm talking to you. And you notice I keep on
the whole of you.
Yeah. The whole of you, but it's really just you, because when you're watching, when you're engaged with a performer or a movie or a speaker, you're not thinking about everybody around you. You are engaged with them or that particular concept. So my feeling is the more I put the energy into you and concentrate on being there for you, the less I'm thinking of me. And I've done the work, so the work's going to come out anyway. And if I screw up, man, I'm so funny. When I make a mistake or something goes wrong, I'm the first guy to just call it out.
Just own it, yeah.
I'm just like, oh my God, I got so excited, I forgot what the hell I'm going to say. I got to check my notes.
And then you get a big laugh.
People love it.
And it's real.
You know,
it's organic.
When you're on stage, as an example, whether you're a musician or even a speaker, like most people's biggest fear, bigger than death, is being on stage in front of people. And because all those eyes, historically, all those eyes on you meant you were going to be eaten. There's a DNA and a long evolution of reasons why it is natural
Welcome
to be afraid.
to the jungle.
But it's not present time. And another thing to remember is the chemistry produced by the amygdala in the brain for fear is the same chemistry produced for excitement. They're literally flip sides of the same coin.
I didn't know that.
Think about the sweaty palms and the overactive, or the accelerated heartbeat, the overactive mind. It's kind of the same thing. Like you're going up, think about going up in a roller coaster as an example, right? You're getting yourself all worked up, man. You're getting yourself all freaked out. You get to the top, you stop breathing, then you go down and you hit the bottom and you go, yeah! And then you get to the end of the roller coaster, you go, I want to do that again!
Right.
Because the fear and the excitement are kind of all intertwined. So the very things, I'm not talking about like somebody pointing a gun at your head. Real fear, yeah, that's a different story. But I'm talking about,
Stage fright.
but most fear is displaced, right?
Right, yeah.
So if you are aware that
Your
fear is probably not even accurate and shouldn't even really be there, then you can kind of laugh and go, well, I can also have the power to shift that to excitement. So think about, how can I be excited about that?
And move beyond the fear and keep pursuing and chasing and going after.
Well, just how can I be excited about that? Very simply. How can, whatever I'm afraid of at that moment, whether it's like playing a note, I'm about to get up in front of 50,000 people, or I'm about to do a pitch to a client, or I'm about to ask a girl out, whatever I'm going to do, how can I be excited about that? And trust me, if you really think, your mind will find a way to be excited about it. You just need to know that you can. You just need to know that chemically, you can actually alter that experience by making a decision. You realize when you make a decision, really make a decision, you're cutting off all other possibilities. That's a Tony Robbins one.
Yeah.
Right? Truly making a decision means
people forget
there ain't no other possibilities. If you make that decision,
it's
that's
the
why
decision.
When a powerful person, like a real leader, makes a decision, man, it affects, it ripples through, because they ain't going back on that shit. So if you act with that amount of power in everything you do,
it's definitive.
It's definitive.
Yeah.
It's it. That's it. I made my decision. Right. That's it.
And then you can focus on making that pan
Well,
out
then
the
you
way.
just take action.
Right, exactly.
Then you move forward on it. Well, the moment you start to waver, it's like, uh-oh.
Let's talk about your new book that you're going to write. Because Stage Fright.
I already did.
Oh, you did? It's already. Is it
Attitude,
already out?
Consequence.
Is it already out?
No, it's not out, but I already talked about everything about it. It's all about the power of shifting your attitude.
What's the title?
We're still working on the title.
Okay, cool. Because
Because originally it was going to be Hacking the Rockstar Attitude.
Okay, cool. Because
right now we're thinking about the attitude equation.
Ooh, I like that.
A times B equals C.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Because
I like
1, 2, 3.
I like that in Conquering Life Stage Fright, you also focus so much on the attitude, because I think sometimes.
Well, in Conquering Life Stage Fright, it's about the 3 C's.
Right.
We learn in groups of 3,
Right.
so it's really you remember. So it's like A times B equals C. CCC, like clarity, capability, confidence. Like, if you're acronyms, if you're going to use acronyms for anything, or use concepts, use them in triads.
I love trinities.
Yeah,
I do.
Trinities. Sorry,
Yes.
not triads. Yeah.
No, or triads.
Well, they
yeah.
do, but your mind actually
Yeah.
there's some study, Dr. Jim told me about it, that shows that your mind actually digests information best in groups of 3.
Right.
Shout out to West Triad.
Yeah.
West Triad.
West Triad. Yeah.
And now, was that an inspiration for the title, or was that just
No, well, actually, no.
happenstance?
The funny thing is, like, so it's me and then Eric Goebel,
Oh, right.
who's a great
And-
engineer, and then
and
Julian Correa,
Julian,
who's one of the great
yeah.
guitar players.
Oh,
plays with
amazing. Alanis Morissette. And,
But originally, my name was like, we're right by the water, and I'm thinking, well, there's 3 of us. Let's call ourselves Wet Triad. And
that's a little suggestive.
Yeah, that's exactly what we thought.
yeah.
We thought,
Throw an S in there.
West, what if we just take one little change?
Let's
West
just-
Triad.
Throw an S in there.
We'll throw an S in there, and that way nobody's going to be thinking you guys are like
Wet
lame
Triad,
or sexual
no.
or something.
Yeah, no. Too suggestive
Yeah,
again.
right, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, but I love the vibe there at your studio too. It's so amazing because those
Yeah.
guys are so great, Julian and
Yeah.
when I was working.
They're
with
my
Eric,
my
oh yeah,
some of my best friends on the
when
planet.
I'd be working with Eric, Julian would be floating in and out on the way to whatever he was doing.
Yeah.
But so the new book, and then now you're speaking primarily now.
Yeah, and my all-star band called Rockers Collective, we're doing more and more gigs.
Ooh, let's talk about that. Vivian Campbell, Derek Whitley.
Well, anybody. Vivian and Derek haven't done it in a long time.
Okay.
What it is, it's a collective of like 40 different musicians that can do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally like our subtitle is what musicians do on their days off.
Right.
So we have this collective of players we can choose from. Half the gigs I haven't even done because I've been on the road. I've had like Brian Tichy and Eric Eldenius and Rich Redmond.
Oh, I know
great
Eric.
drummers.
Billy Idol's drummer.
Yeah.
I've recorded drums
Yeah.
with him. Yeah. He's amazing.
Like different people.
Yeah.
And whoever's available. So we have different singers. We have this whole staple of musicians, and that's what makes it fun. But the basic kind of core band has been Eva, for the Pink Band's been doing it. Julian's been doing it. I've been doing it. We've had different musical directors, either Steve Ferlazzo, who's Avril Lavigne, or Ricky from Ricky just did our last gig. He's like Madonna's MD, or Ollie Marlin, who's like one of my dear friends who does Cher and does
Right.
did Gwen.
Has it been a
Stefani.
long time since Steve Stevens was involved in that too?
Steve's never done a gig with us.
Oh, because I thought I saw him listed
He's
on the
listed,
Rockers
but he's never
Collect-
actually done a gig.
Oh.
Because he just hasn't been available.
Yeah.
But he's part of it. Like,
Yeah.
again, you offer somebody money and you got a gig, they'll do it.
Right.
Vivian's done a gig with us. Justin's done a gig with us from the Pink Band. Derek Whibley did a gig. We had one gig where we had a whole bunch of people say it was a big fundraiser, so a lot of people sat in.
Awesome.
That speaks to. Let's talk a little bit about, because I want to get out to our listeners some of the cool stuff that you have coming up. One is the Ukrainian thing with all the drummers.
Yeah.
Can you speak about that? Can you speak?
Yeah,
to
I'd love
Oh,
to
yeah.
speak about it, but it's gonna by the time this comes out, it might
that? Well,
already
in a
be over.
nutshell. Yeah. No, we're going to get this out pretty
all
quick.
we're doing is we're just getting like all the greatest high level drummers we can, high profile people from Steve Gadd to Vinny Colaiuta to Tony Worcester Jr. to and we're doing it at Russ Miller's studio. Russ is an amazing drummer. He's got this multi-million-dollar super state-of-the-art studio. We got 30-person crew. It's costing $50,000 just to put it on. We got the guys
Wow.
that directed the Jerry Lewis telethon, and the stage manager, and we're doing
wow.
interviews, and Dave Frangione, who's the editor of Modern Drummers, doing some interviews. I'm one of the co-hosts, and we're just trying to raise at least $250,000 for Ukraine on May 22nd.
Oh, awesome.
It's a combination
Amen.
of live performances and pre-recorded performances, but just for this gig, so they're exclusive performances. And
what's
either
the
playing
date of
on the
that?
May 22nd.
All right, cool. Coming up.
Look out
From
for that.
11
This
a.m.
podcast will be out before then.
Oh, excellent. So
awesome.
from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's like a telethon, so like 6 hours of just playing and interviews and just
Awesome.
raising money and
I love it.
awareness.
And
interviews with Ukrainians and some Ukrainian drummers, and
Perfect.
it's this whole. man, we need to help.
The world needs it.
It's
Yeah.
like the world needs it,
Yeah.
and
The community needs to come together, to rally together.
well,
That's a
Scott
good way to do
Swimmer,
that.
who's got this amazing cancer drumming charity called Drumstrong, originally called me like 3 weeks ago or something, and he said, "Hey man, can you put together like a drum circle to raise money for the Ukraine?" And I'm like, "Man, I always think big. I'm thinking,
I'll do you one
why
better.
would we do that? Why don't we just get all the drummers in LA and everybody else around the world to send in videos? And we'll do something really big." And then, Russ came into the picture because Russ was hiring me to actually speak at his new facility. He's got this state-of-the-art facility, and he wanted me to, want some content. So I said, "Russ, you ready can we do the drumathon?" He's like, "Yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to." And so Russ comes in, and he's just like, got this incredible facility with this incredible crew.
Where is the
all these
facility,
people.
by the way?
It's in Simi Valley.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh, awesome.
So we're just doing it, man. We're right in the middle of organizing, like right as we speak. It's this crazy organization. The website just went up yesterday, but it's not ready yet. We got more shit and list all the players and still get people to confirm it all the times and who's doing it live and who's pre-recording. And I mean, it's massive organization.
Oh, that's amazing.
Way beyond my pay grade.
Well,
I just kind of came up with an idea based on Scott's idea. And now Russ has really run with it. Now all three of us are just like scrambling and trying to and getting sponsorship from the companies to underwrite the cost of the production, and it's a big ordeal. But man, that's what we got to be as large scale. I mean, our world is
Yes.
Putin's attacking, trying to create the old fashioned USSR, and after Ukraine, he might go after.
Yeah,
knows?
It's definitely a serious situation, and
It's a very, very serious situation. Human rights
and
abuses
a great
everywhere. It's
charity,
horrible.
honestly, for this moment in time.
We have three different charities and the money's going to go right to the charities.
Oh, that's
Scott,
amazing.
Scott Swimmer is brilliant with getting money right to the charities. He's worked in nonprofits with his organization for so long.
Perfect.
So it's like there's going to be no we're not going through UNICEF or anybody's going to take any piece of it. It's like we're going right straight to the charities. Every bit of money.
That's amazing. Yeah.
We're paying the crew. Because you need to pay. I don't expect people to work for free. It's like when I do a charity event for an artist that I'm working with, I can donate my time, but they don't assume that we are going to.
Well, and also anybody who's ever worked in entertainment knows that the crews work
crew
the hardest.
gets paid.
They get paid, but they work the hardest.
Yeah.
Those are the hardest working guys.
Right.
They're doing
They make us
all
look
the,
good.
They're doing
Well,
doing all
of
the
course.
grunt work.
I mean, the crews are like. I tell people when I give my speeches, like we had 225 people on the road, and every single person was just as important as everybody else.
Of course, yeah.
Like when Pink is like parched, when she's just done like a death-defying aerial stunt, and she's just saying she's running back to like get that desperate sip of water or spray her throat, like the girl that's responsible for putting the liquid on stage right then is the most important person on the tour. Because if that's not there, then like she can't even, the second rigger who's in charge of making sure that the motor's going to work when she does the aerial thing and is watching the motor like a hawk. He's the most important person because that motor messes up.
No, I remember one time on one of the tours she got yanked off stage because someone didn't.
She almost died.
Yeah, and so it's those guys are the ones you count on. Those are the ones that got your back. Those are the guys that need to be paid. As you said.
Like my drum tech, man. It's like if like I've been on stage where all of a sudden my pack stops working, so all I'm hearing is music through my in-ears. If that goes out, the only music I can hear is the 3-second delay off of the back of the venue, and I have no sense of time, no sense of anything, and like that's the point where I immediately like grab my mic and look at the musical director. My pack's out, so he starts doing this. He's telegraphing the time to me to keep me in time while they can come in. Like sometimes the batteries go bad, or like
can get out there
and like
deal with it.
But that's what you do, man. We're relying on each other. It's not just like even I mean,
it takes a village.
It's teamwork.
The artist is the critical aspect because the artist is the brand that we're all there to support.
Right.
I even joke with people. I say, imagine being on stage in front of 50,000 people. And not one set of eyes is looking at you. Because it's true. Like we're the, what do we call? We're called the backline.
Yeah.
The drums, the bass, the guitar.
Stop! I've seen the big screens and
no, but I'm serious,
you get
man.
your FaceTime.
But the point is, like, we are all truly. That's why when people call me a rock star, I just gotta laugh.
Yeah.
Because my thing is, like,
I just
I'm
play
really
one on TV.
truly there to support her,
You're a rock star.
foreigner or anybody I'm with. It's like I'm there to be support.
Yeah.
Man. Like,
you're a rock star. guitar, gotta own it.
All right, I'll own it.
And you know,
so what else? We've said everything, right?
Yeah, you know, pretty much. I just want to circle back really quickly to some of the key moments when you were pursuing that dream to get where you are today. Like some of those key moments, like when, for example, the first time you got connected to something really big, and then you went, "Oh, wow, this is really big. This is the next. I'm finally getting there. The dream is finally starting to come real." Was there a moment with a particular gig you got, or
well, my first road gig with Brenda, and the interesting thing about that is, again, relationships are so critical. You know, our success really is based on the relationships we have cultivated. And here's the irony. So I told you I was a grammar tutor at 19 years old, and I tutored a drummer named Armin Grimaldi. Brilliant drummer, played with Don Henley, played with Claire Fisher.
Oh, wow.
And he was going back to school at 26, which ironically was the year that I got my first road gig, because he wanted to become an attorney because he wanted to get off the road. Because he thought, I need a more steady gig, man, you know, it's too inconsistent. So I leave town, I move to Portland, Oregon, blah, 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 come back to town, meet Mark Brown, that bass player. Mark's friends with Armand. Armand got called to do the Brenda Russell gig and couldn't do it, but he was friends with Mark, and Mark said, "Oh, Mark Schulman's back in town." Now, Armand and I had played drums together for fun. I was 19, he was 26. I said, "Dude, you're really good, you know?" So Armand's like, "Shit, Mark's back in town. He can do this Brenda Russell gig." So he recommends me. So sight unseen, without having to audition, the gig is mine. I just need to come through. By that point, I had already failed the bad English audition. I'd already done my 2 years of rhythm course. I was okay, I'm ready now.
Right.
So I just basically needed to hang on to the gig. And I was so extracurricular that I offered to run the sequencing from my chair. So as long as they paid for an MPC 60, which was the big sequencing thing. So I learned the MPC 60. No, I already knew the MPC 60 and I already started playing with it, but I didn't own one. So they bought one. So I did all the sequencing from my chair, and I was running all the sampling. So I was always extra. I'm like, "What do you need? I'll do more, you know." And I was
being of service, adding value.
Being of service.
Yeah.
And that was my first gig, and that's kind of, you know, through that gig I started to meet more people, and then I met, you know, some of the smooth jazz folks, and that's where I met a guy that I played with, and I was playing like at Madame Wong's West at midnight, and Jeff Lorber happened to be there because the bass player Alec was playing with this other guy.
Madame Wong's.
And Lorber's like, "Who's that drummer, man?" And so I started playing with Jeff Lorber Fusion, and he didn't have any gigs. Who booked the gigs? I put together the freaking tour.
There you go.
Because I'm like, I'll be damned if I'm playing with Jeff Lorber, who at the time was still cool fusion artist, and there's no freaking gigs. We don't have any gigs. I'll book them.
There you go, making it happen.
So I knew people up in the Pacific Northwest where he had been from too. I booked a 2-week tour, and you know that's when I met Dave Cause, and through Dave Cause I then, you know, met Richard Marks, and I got the Richard Marks gig, and you know it's all,
you know, you gotta be
never
willing.
stop.
Yeah, you gotta be willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done.
Yeah,
you know, you can't see yourself as up here and everything else is down there.
That's my point.
Yeah,
like why, like, you know, like with Foreigner, it's like I'll be damned if that's my gig and there's another drummer playing it, if I'm not going to find out why the hell not, and what I can do to get that gig back. You know, so I'll call
tenacity.
the producer, because if that's a producer you're going to use, then I damn well better let this producer know I exist, because it's my gig. I auditioned for it. How could you be recording with another drummer? It's like cheating on, like finding out my girlfriend's cheating on me or some shit, you know?
Me and Snotty are in that right now with the creation of this ReveLAtions podcast. Yeah. We're our own talent coordinator. We're our own transportation. We're our own tech crew. We're, you know, you got to.
We're building. You got to start somewhere.
In a sea of a gazillion podcasts, so you need to make yourself stand out. So you need to figure out whatever it is you need to do to get yourself up to float above and beyond on the top of the water, instead of, you know, in the sea of, you know, how many countless podcasts. Or you'll just be
ultimately,
another podcast.
We're trying to bring service, you know, we're trying to inspire, we're trying to motivate, we're trying to
bring value.
Yeah.
Like I was saying.
Well, I mean, I think that we're bringing value today. I would like to think so, you know.
Awesome.
Right?
We're
100%.
so grateful to have you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I'm really grateful to be
You're
here,
a busy
man.
guy.
You guys have been great.
To give us this time is
really,
and, you know, it really sucks
sure.
to be in Malibu in a gorgeous
I know, right?
And our first guest. That's a huge
We're
We're
honored.
honored.
First guest.
We're honored.
You know, it's so funny on the
you're
first
on-
podcast we were
yeah.
talking about omens, you know, and
Right.
and because we, you know, that's such a good thing when things are set and, you know, and things are happening, that these little omens that make it seem like, okay, we're on the right track here.
I got one for today.
Yes.
Driving up PCH on the way here, a chick rode by me on a motorcycle with a pink shirt on.
It's awesome.
Like actually right by Cher's house.
Of course,
Like,
a girl on a motorcycle would be wearing a pink shirt.
Right, exactly. I think the good omen, well, one of the good omens, that's a good omen, is that for our very first guest on a show where we're trying to inspire people to chase the dream, to work hard.
You set
to
the bar high.
The courage.
You got a guy who's relentless.
Well, no, I think we have a guy in Mark Schulman, the legend, in my opinion.
I'm a legend in my own lunchtime.
I know you're very humble about your accomplishments.
I think humility is really, really important, especially right now, because a lot of people are so egocentric, and a lot of people, particularly in this internet age, when people are having success for almost timing as well. I don't want to say that. I think that all success, there's a reason for success. Somebody's doing something to navigate their time, or to do the work, or to do something to create that success. But I think a lot of people are taking responsibility for a lot of things that they aren't necessarily responsible for exclusively. You know, there are opportunities that come through them, and they should be paying it forward, as you say, but also giving other people a lot more credit, so other people get to share in the excitement and get to share in the experience. Like for me, there's so many, like, you know, I'm not even talking enough about like my management company, Ode Management, for my speaking management. They're great. Like Arnold, I call him my right hand arm. He's just incredible.
Shout out to Arnold.
And my wife and my kid alone, just the support that they give me is just stupendous. And all of my friends and everybody is like, I used to do my own drum sessions and engineer my own sessions, and now I won't even do a session unless Eric engineers it, because Eric is such a great engineer. I finally like, why struggle when he's better and I can include him and he can make some money and everybody
I remember
wins,
all the hours and hours and hours I spent in the studio with him, and we're mixing and we're recording, we're doing all these things, and just his acumen and his talent for that, his ears, everything about him is. Why would you do it yourself if you got Eric in the room?
He's lovely because his energy is so brilliant.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a matter of humility is very, very critical right now. I think for everybody. I mean, in the world, period. Even after having the president that we just had, you know, who just had like no humility whatsoever, everything was about him and he took credit for everything. And it's like, it just makes everybody else feel bad when you are taking credit for something that they deserve credit for. Right. I'd rather give extra credit to people than take more credit for myself, because then I'm, again, being of service, more of service to others.
This is why we feel so honored, and that it's such a great omen that you're our first guest.
And I give you credit for recognizing the opportunity. And, you know, just because GM and I went out to lunch last week or whenever, he's like, we're doing this podcast. Like, you want to be? I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You know,
all
I got to do is ask.
The power of three.
But the whole intention was that you would possibly be the first guest, because for us, that we feel like you kind of are the physical embodiment of the concept of this. In an interesting
very nice,
way. We thought, wow, who better? You know, to help us launch this idea of like, let's be inspirational. Let's tell people to continue to dream, work hard, and find the courage, and keep the right attitude, and pay it forward, and all these things
and do the work.
And do the work.
And be humble.
You've given us so
many.
And
you get to do it. You don't have to.
Yes.
You get to.
Yes.
Have tos and get tos. Exactly. Yeah. So many good nuggets of knowledge and inspiration.
Well, the nuggets are what we remember, man. That's what keeps me going.
So we're super grateful. Thank you so much.
I'm so grateful.
And we'll look forward to having you on again in the future when this thing is what it is.
Because you bought me a cup of coffee.
I know, right? You're such a cheap date.
I'm ready for another one.
We can make that happen for you.
Don't you know who I think I am?
I know, right?
To our listeners, you know, we're sending light and love and all of the above.
Yeah.
Thanks for
light
checking
and love
it out.
and all the above. I like that. I might take that.
Yeah.
Keep dreaming. Keep listening.
Yeah. You know what I say? One of my quotes is, "Dream your life and live your dreams."
And you know what? That's a mic drop. Dream
Yep,
your life
there you
and
go.
live your dreams. We might borrow that.
Take it.
Yes, we
Thank
yeah.
I would take it.
Awesome.
Listen for more episodes of ReveLAtions. Thank you, Mark
ReveLAtions.
All right. And we're out.
Cool.
That's a wrap.
That was great, man.
Yes.
Oh, that was so
Thank you
easy,
so
so
much.
good.
Yeah. Great fun, man.
Thank you, Mark. You just like
It's a good podcast. It's a great concept, and